Welcome to the Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world. Small.
In this week's episode of the Kindness Project, we share the best of the Kindness Project over the years, part 3.
Welcome to the Kindness Project.
Oh, that was very formidable, actually. I think the best word for that is formidable. I am joined by somebody who I can't... The youngest member of the Agatha Christie fan club, it's Charlotte Dames. You love a bit of Agatha Christie, don't you?
Yeah, and I'm joined by the man who lives to grab opportunity by its tail. It's Chris Dames.
Tao.
I was struggling this morning.
Yeah, I'm joined by a girl who can't think of any decent intros anymore. It's
No.
Charlotte
After the
Dames.
first 50, I'm just
I mean, we've been doing this. We've interviewed 30 odd people. We've been doing this and talking about positivity and quite a lot of nonsense. So this week, are we going to go straight into question of the podcast?
Oh, let's do it.
Yep. So this week, question of the week is: who is the world's greatest detective?
Agatha Christie. No.
Agatha Christie wasn't a detective, was she?
Not Agatha Christie, Sherlock Holmes.
Okay, Sherlock Holmes. So not an Agatha Christie, not Poirot,
Okay.
not Miss Marple.
Poirot wasn't that clever. I like his character and I like the way Agatha Christie writes over the way that Conan Doyle writes. Also, the only Conan Doyle books I own are like huge flipping books. And they're whoppers.
But Sherlock is still a better.
Yeah, he's still a better detective.
Right. Okay.
But I think Poirot's just a nicer person.
Okay.
Like, he's a decent human being, and Sherlock Holmes...
Sherlock's a bit of a sociopath, isn't he? Yeah. So who would you pick? Who's the nicest detective and who's the best detective?
I don't think Poirot is necessarily a nice detective. He's just a more decent human being than Sherlock.
Okay.
And Sherlock's not necessarily he's a bad person. He's a bad person because he just he disregards other people other than like John. But
Yeah. So it's definitely between Poirot and Sherlock. You're not including anybody else in that.
No, I haven't read any Marples because I haven't been able to get my hands on any.
Okay.
I feel like my favourite Agatha Christie isn't even one that's got a detective in it.
No, and then there were none. That is an amazing book, by the way.
And the detective only comes in the last chapter when they're trying to figure out how all of them died, and they just think it's all a...
That is probably my best Agatha Christie. I haven't read that many Agatha Christies, but my favourite one is definitely
I
And Then
like
There Were None.
the murder of Roger Ackroyd because the ending.
Can we we'll let our audience decide who is the world's greatest detective, because I'm sure that our audience have got a few comments on that. But can we just, because I'm trying really hard to get your catchphrase into every single show.
20 years in a shovel.
In a show. So can I ask you
I'll tell you, but you have to give me 20 years in a shovel.
Can I ask you a few questions and then you just answer however you feel appropriate? You're locked in jail, but you're an innocent person.
20 years in a shovel.
How would you get out? Can I ask the question first?
Please not guilty, and if they lock me up anyway, give me 20 years in a shovel.
All right, okay, fine. You're in McDonald's. What item would you add to the menu?
A shovel.
20 years in a shovel.
20-year matured shovel.
How long does it take to build the Eiffel Tower?
20 years in a shovel. You have to pick the shovel apart and use all the bolts to...
What's your mum's nickname?
20 years in a shovel.
Rose? Rose? Let me think. Where would you live ideally?
20 years in a shovel. 20 years in a shovel and I'll get there.
You went to a fortune teller recently. What did she say to you?
20 years in a shovel. Good, actually.
Yeah.
Well, no, not fortune teller, but I had my card ready, so...
Oh, no, you didn't, did you? Please tell me you didn't. You know it's all nonsense, didn't you?
Yeah.
Who read your cards? Who read your cards? I can't believe you read your card. Who read your cards? This is the first time I'm hearing this. Why are you telling me this on Facebook Live on a podcast? Who read your cards?
Oh, thank you.
Who read your cards? Right. I told you last week that I was 2% Scottish, right? I shared that information with you. So what I need...
I've shared the information that I have my cards read.
What did the card say? You're the two of hearts.
No,
You don't want to tell me is what
no,
you're
I
saying.
can't remember.
Right. Who read your cards?
Why?
Was it somebody at school?
Yeah.
Was it another school 15-year-old who said, I tell you what, I'm going to tell you what your future is by banging out some cards. Was it a normal pack of playing cards or was it
No,
tarot?
it was tarot cards.
Tarot.
Tarot
Yeah.
cards.
So what tarot cards did you get?
I think there was some ones, some queen, and there was a queen.
Some ones. She was just using a normal pack of cards.
No,
Yeah.
no, wands. I think you
Wands.
got a 5 of wands, I think.
5 of wands. Yeah, what does that tell you about your life?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just a
That's
picture
all
of some men
nonsense.
carrying some sticks.
Tarot. Honestly. Do you want to go and see a faith healer next or what? What other sort of...
I'll just meditate and use face masks. They work the same.
Meditate and use faith. But I do not let, well, look, do what you want, but please do not take anything that somebody who's read your cards says seriously. I bet she said you're going to have 47 kids or something, didn't she?
No.
You know what, right? Russell, the esteemed editor of this show, once went to a fortune teller. Now, you know how I feel about fortune tellers. I'm a bit of an evidence guy, aren't I? I like evidence to be the base. I no disrespect to anybody who believes what they want to believe, but I like to see the evidence, okay? And Russell went to see a fortune teller and Russell's a big fella, okay? Russell went to see a fortune teller who said, I get the feeling that your ankles hurt, right? And I looked at him when he told me this. I went, Russ, you're 22 stone. Of course your ankles hurt. I mean, genuinely, how much of a fortune teller do you need to be to say you're a big bloke, your legs might hurt every now and again? I just don't know. So please don't go and see a fortune teller, or if you do it as a laugh. Don't take it too seriously. World's greatest detective. That fortune teller clearly wasn't the world's greatest detective, was she? Because wouldn't have taken her too much to work that out.
No.
No.
She was a decent detective, though. She did figure out.
Welcome, my friends, to the Kindness Project. I'm joined by a girl who's shining, just like a Fifth Avenue diamond. It's Charlotte Ames.
Classic. And I'm joined by a man who, when packing for holiday, he packs more books than he does pants. It's Chris James.
Oh, that is an amazing intro.
Thank you, I came up with it 5 minutes ago.
Right, no, look, there will be more undergarments in my case by the time we leave for holiday tomorrow.
Currently there's 4 pairs and 6 books.
No, right. There will be more pairs, because you know what my tradition is when I go on holiday? I like buying new pants and socks. That's my holiday thing, new pants and socks for a holiday. So my mummy's, for new listeners, not my mummy, my wife, Cassie, and Charlotte's mum, is your mum, is your mum, always says, why do you buy new socks and pants on holiday? I think you want to go on holiday and just have some new undergarments. So
Socks for holiday?
That book pant ratio that you've very weirdly connected, but funnily connected, will change. So I will have just as many books as pants, and potentially more pants than books. What's your book to knicker ratio?
2 to 8.
2 to 8. So you're taking 8 books and how many knickers?
No.
Oh.
I am taking 8 books and 24 knickers. I'm taking 8 knickers and 2 books.
How long are we going for? Only going for a week, can we? That is, are you going to have like a knicker change every 3 hours? Oh, they're gone. I'm burning them. New set of knickers. New set of
No,
knickers.
I've got 8 knickers and 2 books, but I am taking Hitchhiker's Guide, and it's the complete collection. So it's 5 books in one, so it's 6.
Yes, I don't know if because I'm taking the Spike Milligan collection, so it's got all his poetry, all his novels, everything in there, and that counts as one book because it's a compendium. So that Hitchhiker's Guide is a beast of a book, isn't it? I mean,
I'm on the second one. I'm on Restaurant at the End of the Universe.
which is one of my favourites. But quick question: what's the knicker equivalent you're taking of that? Have you got a pair of big knickers that you're taking?
All my knickers are big knickers.
Okay, fair enough. This has got a bit weird now. So we are listeners on holiday from tomorrow, but by the time you listen to this, we'll have come back.
And then gone again.
That's the way, yeah, and gone again. Because number one, we like holidays, and number two, that's how podcasts work. But normal business continues because of our esteemed editor, Mr. Russell Dames, who's not here today, but I just thought I'd give him I just thought I'd give him a shout out because of the fine work he does, making sure that even if we're not here, the podcast just carries on.
You're awesome, dude.
Dude, you're awesome.
Where's my donkey?
Dude, where's my car? Have you heard? They're remaking Bill, and they're not remaking. They're making a sequel to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Have you ever seen? You're looking at me like you don't know what that is. Have I made an late 80s, early 90s reference again, and you've gone straight over your head?
Oh, where did I go?
So, in this segment, which we still haven't got a trailer for, did you want to do a little jingle?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. It is the section where we just talk about a little bit about good news. And in this particular week's story, I've got teen praised for his honesty after heartfelt apology and cookies. And cookies. The stranger following Icy Road accident. Not many people would celebrate their mailbox getting taken out by a car, but when Crystal Collins experienced the valour and kindness of the particular youth who hit it, she knew she wanted to shout his praises in public. The teenager rang her doorbell when she was at home in Lincoln, Nebraska, and told her that due to icy conditions, he'd accidentally hit her mailbox. Not only did the youngster offer his most heartfelt apologies for the incident, he also offered her every dollar in his wallet. Collins told him to keep his money, but he returned to her house 2 days later with a plate of homemade cookies.
Aww.
If anyone who wants to come round, don't knock down my letterbox because my letterbox is attached to the door, and that might be a bit awkward. But if you want to,
Especially with the storm we got going on right now.
Exactly, yeah, it's a bit stormy. If you want to come round and, I don't know, no, actually don't. Don't do anything. Just bring cookies. That's what I'm saying.
Cookies.
Just bring cookies.
Cookies.
Collins was so touched, she published a Facebook photo of the young man from a security camera last week in hopes of identifying him and his family. I am looking for his parents, she wrote. They should know what an outstanding young man they have raised. After the post was shared several thousand times, the young man was identified as Owen Sullivan. It also reached a social media of his mother, Jamie, and she was extremely touched by her son's honesty. I honestly got teary-eyed because it was so just nice to know your kids do good things when you're not around. I love that story. I love that story. How do you behave when nobody's looking and nobody you know is looking? That's the true test of an individual. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
What do I think? I think you're right. I think that is the true test of an individual. exactly what they do when no one they know, because like people often act differently to try and impress others. So if there's no one you know present,
What would you do? Yeah.
who are you trying to impress? And the answer is absolutely no one.
Yeah. So, but an amazing thing to do. Well done, that young man. Well done, Owen. And keep up the good work. Tell me a bit about the page. Talk to me. So, is that on Facebook?
It's on Instagram.
Instagram.
We haven't gone through to. I keep saying we like it's an organisation. It's not. It's just me. I do everything on it on my own. It's just on Instagram at the moment. So it's basically.
And these are where the videos are, right?
These are where the videos are. All the motivational quotes. I've had other guests come on the page and stuff like that to speak. I've actually been asked to do a bit of motivational speaking about mental health in companies now, so I'll be putting that onto it. But it's more like little sentences, little phrases, little quotes that you can read it in the morning and think, you know what, that's me.
That's giving me a boost for the day.
Like one of my most liked posts actually was, do you ever feel like you have your demons locked up, but you're the one who gives them the key?
Yeah.
And then people start going, oh yeah, I've got this and this and this going on, but sometimes I think about it and boom, I'm down into the ground again.
Gotcha.
So you are the only one who lets that demon
who's
out.
in control. Yeah.
Exactly. But everything is on there, even the links to the website and to the podcast, it's all on there. And that's where I actually speak to a lot of, I don't like to say clients, but that's where I speak to a lot of people about their mental health. So I actually book them into little slots through the day, because I work 7 days a week, so it's a little bit hard. So in the evenings I'll say to someone, okay, well, if you want us to talk to me, you can talk to me between 6 and 7,
okay,
and we'll have that slot. So I actually speak to people every day, all people from around the world, and
just supporting them through their own journeys,
because I'm not involved. I'm not involved in anything that actually goes wrong.
I mean, I suppose what you said was really interesting, because the story that I like the most, and I'm pretty sure we've told it on the podcast before, but the story I like the most is the one about a granddad, and is speaking to his grandson, and he said, in your mind there's two wolves. Have you heard the story?
No.
So in your mind, there's two wolves. There's one that's full of worry and doubt and insecurity and hate and all of this all these negative emotions. And there's one that's full of love and hope and joy and happiness and kindness and all of that sort of stuff. And these two wolves are always sort of fighting. And the little boy turns around and goes, "Granddad, who wins? What wolf wins?" And the granddad just says, "The one you feed." And it's really
interesting.
See, I love that story because it does. And again, it's a very simple analogy to, as humans, we're complex, aren't we? It doesn't describe everything we go through, but part of the work you do on your podcast, and part of the work we try and do on the Kindness Project is highlighting there is hope. Highlighting that there is stories and ways of coping
there is the light at the end of the tunnel. The sun comes up every day, the moon comes out every night. It doesn't wait for you. You need to get on and keep going, and so if the sun rises, there is hope for you as well.
Agreed. What's throughout the work you've done on the podcast and the work you've done to speak to people every day, what's the greatest misconception that most people have about their own mental health, or just mental health in general?
Greatest misconception? It's a good one, actually. Like I said to you about people think that if you're helping everyone all the time, then you must be all right. That's a big one, because there'll be weeks where I'm actually really struggling and no one will know because I'm Mr. Positive on my page for you. That's a big one.
But there's a perception that positivity means that you're okay, and that's a challenge, isn't it?
And that you can have toxic positivity. Whereas you're lying to yourself and you're lying to others, and that then puts you in some sort of alter ego. You are Mr. Happy, you are Mr. Cheerful.
You've got
and you can't keep that character up.
Firstly, and again, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this: how are you at the moment?
At the moment, I'm fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
Fine,
look,
I'm doing good.
look, mate, it's nice to be asked, isn't it? So
It is
I
nice.
thought I'd be the one, hopefully,
Thank
to
you.
to
The
ask
first
you.
one in weeks.
I've got this little image of you having like a little counter on your phone, right? Chris said it on the
Yeah.
11th
I will
of October.
do that.
When are we gonna?
I'm going to send you a Christmas card saying
Look,
thank you for
mate,
asking.
just send me a little message. I'll ask how you are anytime you want. And then I suppose the other thing is what is that? How do we make sure we maintain positivity, but we're honest about the mental health challenges we have?
Because you're allowed to have down days.
Yeah,
you are
yeah,
allowed to have bad
yeah,
days. And then bad days can turn into weeks, and that's all right.
Yeah.
As long as you mention it, because otherwise no one's going to know that you are that way. And it's better for your surroundings to know so they can check up on you.
Yeah.
Whether that be friends, be family, work colleagues. As long, I sometimes go up to my boss at work and say, do you know what, I'm not feeling myself for the last couple of days. I'll check up on you again in like a couple of weeks' time just to let you know how I'm doing. That's fine. So if I am in some sort of issue or trouble, at work, then he'd go, okay, well, he has told me he's got stuff on.
Yeah.
And, it does work with friends.
And do you I mean, certainly I've got perspective on this, but do you think stigma around having conversations about mental health still
Men's
exists?
mental health, definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
mean, it's getting there, very slowly but surely. But we've still got a lot of work to do because there's always going to be that stigma of, as you're the man, you're the provider, you're the rock, you're the strong one, you're the one who goes to the gym, you're the hard man. I go to the gym to try and keep everything else at bay. So that's how I release my endorphins. So it's that was a massive stigma that I tried to do. Do you know what? My actual target audience for the page and podcast was meant to be for men. And I've 70% women listeners.
but then part of that might be because women are more comfortable having conversations about mental
definitely
health.
they are.
I mean, interestingly, I was saying before the podcast about the interviews we did with Ollie Smith, and for listeners of the podcast, definitely check Ollie's interviews out, because particularly in certain professions and sectors, we think we need to be number one right all the time, which is absolute nonsense, isn't it? Nobody is perfect, but also number two, strong. And this perception of strong then doesn't allow us to have open and honest conversations about ourselves.
It's because the strong is manly. And it's like, well, am I not allowed to have emotion?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Is it because, that I do this and I do that, and that it doesn't actually make me less of a man if maybe I actually want to sit there and cry and let everything out? It shouldn't do. But there is that perception that it is still there.
Or put your hand up every now and again and go, look, I'm struggling a bit. I just need to talk this through, or I need some help, or I need 10 minutes, or whatever it is. Just admitting that you haven't got to be perfect.
You are allowed to put up your hand and say that I'm not feeling myself at the moment. And that was one of my biggest regrets, was not asking for help sooner.
Was that when you were, and again, if you don't want to talk about this, that's fine, but when you were addicted, or later, or
yes, whilst I was struggling with addiction, I wish that I asked for help a lot sooner. But I think that was more like the in denial, that no, you're all right, don't worry about it, you're all good. And that's not me talking, that's the addiction. And we say, I like to say taking drugs or alcohol is a choice, but addiction is a disease. It does come into it where the disease actually takes over, and that controls all of your thought processes, all of your emotions, and they're never happy. They might be happy 5 minutes, and then the rest of the day it is absolutely depressing.
Okay,
it's awful.
So I suppose the other thing, it's really interesting when it comes to mental health, because the other thing I often think is how amazing some of these tools are that we've got now digitally to talk to other people, again, from around the world, share some of these ideas and stories, help people positively, but also how some of these tools can be detrimental to our own mental health. What do you think about that, sort of challenge?
social media. That's the worst thing and the best thing in the world. Social media, for the fact that everyone has to be a certain person, and you have to dress a certain way, you have to look a certain way, you have to be tanned, you have to be this, you have to be rich. That's not everyday life.
Yeah.
For normal people, it's not.
Yeah.
And you know, for that couple that you aspire to be, who's on social media, who's always in Dubai and who's always at posh restaurants, no one knows that actually they argue every day and they're massively in debt from the holidays. To take a picture. And that's what's really bad. And obviously the trolling that goes on, the abusive messages. But then obviously, I've spoken to the best people ever through Into the Mind, and the strongest people ever, who I would never have spoken to in the street.
Yeah.
And
that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's such a great connector, and we get windows of the world where you can have really interesting conversations with people you'd never connect with, and I mean, it was funny. We've had a guy on the podcast who I knew sort of vaguely, and this was a couple of years ago, an amazing guy called Patrick Luong. And the reason I knew him is because he was in our professional field, so he worked as a financial planner. And his story is amazing because he did his own financial plan and worked out he didn't want to be a financial planner anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he said, okay, I don't think this is, because a lot of the conversations we have with clients isn't always about money. It's about purpose and what you want to do with your life, and then linking the money to allow you to do that, but working out what really inspires you to live the life you want. Luckily, I love being a financial planner, so I'm going to carry on. But Patrick didn't. And he left to work in the charity sector.
Okay.
So I said to him, look, come along and, we'll have a conversation about life, but we'll also have a conversation about charities. I think he was working for WaterAid at the time. So we had a conversation about the amazing work they do supplying clean water to various parts of the world. But, and he listens to the podcast and promotes the podcast. He's been amazing in that regard. But I was running the marathon a couple of weeks ago. I was running round the back of Canary Wharf on the way to Canary Wharf, and suddenly up pops Patrick. Right, he's just there. I was like, I haven't seen you for a long. Last time he was on the podcast was 9 months ago, and the problem is I'm quite tactile, right? So I'm running. I'm emotional anyway because I'm running the marathon's quite emotional. I'm about 16 and a bit miles in. Patrick goes, Chris, I'll see him and just give him a big cuddle.
Yeah.
And the problem is, we've had COVID. I don't know whether he's comfortable with a hug or not. And I haven't seen him for a while. And I'm all sweaty. And I'll just give him a big hug. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I know I should have asked first. Normally,
you just wanted to wave.
I just wanted the human connection. So anyway, ran on. Got 17 miles where the charity was. I did it to St Francis Hospice. And my girls were there, my two daughters and my wife. Had a big hug from them. And then got to mile 23. There's Patrick again. So I was like, that cuddle couldn't have been too bad.
Yeah.
He knows it. So anyway, I actually... sorry, I'm being a bit noisy. I actually asked him this time whether he wanted a cuddle or not.
Yeah.
And he did. So it was all right. But yeah.
Well, I think it would have been a bit late to ask now, wouldn't it? Just be like, we've done it once, let's do it again.
Exactly. We've broken all the rules already. We need to make sure that we're being a bit careful.
Human contact is key.
Yeah, great. And I think during lockdown we've missed that, haven't we?
Yeah.
That sort of just...
Yeah, we was all so deprived of human contact. I didn't think we'd ever get to a point where we'd be deprived of human.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the, in terms of the key topics on the podcast where you thought, you know what, I really need to talk about this, and the feedback you've got from the podcast so far.
Probably reason why.
Right.
The reason why was a big one for me, and that I struggled for weeks writing it because every time I thought I'd finished, I read it through and it wasn't what I wanted. Delete, start again.
Right.
Wasn't what I wanted, delete again. So that took me ages because how you feel it and how you want to try and write it down is two totally different things. Because I need to put it out there for everyone else to kind of have the same perception of it. And
So talk to me a little bit about that. What do you mean by the reason why?
the reason why can change your life, and it changed mine. So, as long as your reason why is big enough and it's strong enough, then you can do anything. So, my reason why to come off drugs was my kid brother. I didn't want him growing up and knowing me to be that certain way, or even not being around and stuff like that. So, he was my reason why. I have another person on my Into the Mind who said that her reason why after I released it was her daughter's, who she has bipolar, and she got diagnosed a little while ago and just refused all medication.
Right.
So now she started taking medication. Now she feels a lot better, and that's her reason why was her kids to then make a happy environment at home.
Yeah.
And someone else wanted to try and get a promotion at work. And I told them, what is your reason why to get that? What is your reason why to get the more money and the promotion? What is your main goal? And they told me what it was. I said, keep that in your mind.
And what was it?
Focus. It was to buy him and his girlfriend a house.
Okay.
They've now got a mortgage.
Yeah.
Because that was his reason why.
But you know what's interesting, Eddie? How much of people's reason why are about other people.
Yes.
And being what's your reason why for now to sitting here today? What's your reason why?
My reason why now is because I've got. It sounds a bit silly, but I've got too deep now with Into the Mind, where now people kind of rely on me and stuff like that. So my reason why now to carry on is for other people who I help, and it's the messages I get fed back of. Thank you so much for having the time with me. Thank you. I've now seen a therapist. I've now gone to rehab, and it's them thank yous that keep me going, and they're my reasons why.
Gotcha. But yeah, it's interesting how it's always related to being kind to others, isn't it? Or being a role model, or being,
It's almost like giving back. Your reason why is almost giving back to whether it's a family member, a friend, or society itself.
Yeah.
There's always something else that's bigger than you that you want to participate in.
Yeah.
And I think that if that is your main goal, then that's worthy of doing.
You know, it's funny when I think about my reason why. I've thought about this a lot. It's teaching my kids. So for me, the element that is the big for me is teaching. I mean, one of the reasons we did the Kindness Project and started the Kindness Project is because I was trying to prove to both myself and my girls that you could do well and do good.
Yeah,
you can actually, have a positive impact in the world and make a decent living, and that sort of stuff. And everything that, if you trace back everything that I do when I get up in the morning, so that I don't think purpose comes from money. I think it comes from whether you're believing in what you're doing. Money might play a part in that, but certainly it's got to be a lot more than that. But getting up in the morning with a clear purpose, a clear reason why it's so important.
Well, you say about the money. That's my point exactly. Is that I don't get paid for Into the Mind. Nothing comes my way. It's all outgoing. So probably the only thing I get from it is where I sell the t-shirts and the wristbands. That is the only part that I get back. All my time I spend talking to people online every day. All my weekends of editing podcasts. I booked a studio myself. I book people's parking to make sure that they are comfortable coming on the show. I book, there's so many things that's outgoing that keeps the website and keeps the podcast, keeps everyone happy. But again, that's my reason why. But it's nothing to do with money.
No.
It's just about giving back.
But also, if you're, interestingly for me, and I don't know if this is the same for you, but part of my reason why is I'm always learning. So these conversations help me learn and grow as a human. Do you know what I mean? So having the opportunity to just, it is really interesting, because when you run a podcast, having the opportunity to just phone somebody up and go, "You're really interesting, can I have a conversation with you?" is a privilege.
Yeah.
It's really good. So it's really nice. It's a really good way of sort of, meet, as you say, meeting interesting people, maintaining connections, and hearing from other people who are doing great stuff in the world. So that's why you're on it, because you're doing amazing stuff. I really love what you're doing. One of the most interesting things for me in my day job, in the job as a financial planner, is often people come and see me at a point of transition. So they're thinking, and my typical client, sort of early 50s to early 60s, looking at a position where they're trying to work out whether financially they've reached a level of wealth to do something else. And a lot of the conversations aren't about money. They're about, what do I do with my life, Chris? I'm now at a point where I've achieved a level of financial independence. I'll give you an example. Working with a guy at the moment, and I won't break any confidentialities clearly, but working with a guy at the moment who said, I've been doing the same thing quite successfully for 30 years. What am I if I'm not my job? And part of the conversations that we have are around saying, what is your purpose in life? What is it you really want to, like, where do you add value to the world over and above the money? If we can tell you that the money's going to be all right, and that conversation, Jeff, fascinates me, because it's so interesting in terms of helping people, and guide. And the life coaching, I'd imagine, is doing exactly that, just more intensely, right?
Well, you're in a coach even asking those sessions. I guess it's how you put a structure around that conversation, so that someone walks out the door feeling like they are, a step closer towards working it out and feeling empowered as a result. But yeah, what a fascinating stage of life to be in, where you start to actually align yourself with what you actually want to achieve with the time you have after what you thought was important was the career, and now realizing, well, that's just given you it's given you the tools, the experience, and maybe the platform to then be able to make decisions as to what you do. I love where I've landed with just like, I was really clear this week this year, that it was all about what I can give. And it's the reason why I do plenty of podcasts. It's the reason why I'm doing the workshops for free and the walk and talk stuff at a different game every Saturday, wherever I am. And it's because if I can do my little bit, and if you can do a little bit with this podcast, if someone else can do their little bit with something else, then
the world's going to be a better place as a result, right?
We have to see ourselves as the balance to all the bad stuff, as opposed to, I'd never be one to sit around and just be like, well, this is bad, isn't it? Well, okay, what can we do that I guess is contradicting to that, and what's the opposite?
Yeah, what can we do to just engender some sort of positive change? And if we can do that, that's good. And I suppose the big factor. I know you mentioned you trained as a life coach. What was your biggest lessons when you went through that process for you?
Thinking specifically as a coach, was my introduction to imagery, which is not something that I was trained in, but just something as a coach I naturally gravitated towards, and that is to help people to see their situation from a different point of view, by inviting them to close their eyes and imagine the situation visually. And by playing around with that, and by realizing how powerful it is, a lot of people get very used to avoiding the same conversation they seem to be having a lot with a lot of people, where it's just purely verbal. But actually, when you invite someone to see it and to create an image, obviously it's not me giving them the image, that's them creating it for themselves and telling me what they see and what that metaphor is for their situation. that all of a sudden their resistance to kind of exploring it is less as a result. And as I say, it's just like it never ceases to amaze me how powerful imagery is in helping people unpick the things that they've been stuck in the past. So that was
it's that visualization of a different situation, the situation they're in, just viewed from a different perspective. How would you use that imagery?
Yeah, it's quite flexible. It's really creative in that actually what I'm trying to do, I guess, is help them to construct the visual image. And then when they've constructed it, we start to question it, why things appear in certain ways. But the detail you can go into is absolutely immense, and it all represents very cleverly something that your subconscious has just sort of offered up. So I remember learning about how we're all an iceberg, in that what our conscious cognitive thought process is what you see above the surface, which is, it seems like quite a big, element of the iceberg, but actually
it's not, is it? Yeah.
When you see beneath the surface, it's only 5% of it. And
the problem is, certainly for me, is the more you learn about that personal development stuff, the more you realise you don't know.
We don't know. We know very little. The comprehension of who we are, why we are, the purpose of why we're, it's such a huge unexplored expanse.
And there was a few podcast interviews that I really piqued my interest, particularly, and I want to cover up a couple of things on this. Number one, gratitude. So how important do you think gratitude and being grateful is in terms of your mental health?
I just know when I read I read The Secret about the law of attraction when I was quite young, and I remember thinking, this is how I think. This, someone who's very positive, this will really speak to you, because it infers that basically your life is in your hands, and that if you take full responsibility and accountability for your thought process, then actually that will deliver the life and the experiences, and I guess in some ways the luck that you're looking for.
I personally, and again, I completely appreciate that people might disagree with me. I've not read The Secret, but I just think the reality is a bit more nuanced and deeper than that, purely and simply because the law of attraction just seemed like too much of a simplistic solution for me. What did you think?
No, I agree, but it's a great place to start. Yeah. And what do you lose? So it's not a religion, and I don't think that you're never asking anybody to because it doesn't explain why people get serious illnesses, right? It doesn't explain. So you're right, there are obviously huge caveats, but my response will always just be, what's the harm in taking accountability, which is massive. 100%.
100%.
For your thoughts. If we imagine why anxiety is so rife at the moment, and that is about how people don't quite have the boundaries around their thought process, so it gets carried away, it gets heightened and exaggerated, and next thing you know, something is thought into being a far bigger issue than maybe it was initially. So that's what happens. If your thinking is let's say not constructive, then you're looking at anxiety. If your thought process is one where you understand that if you think positively about things, then you can manifest these things into your existence, then all it means, that even if it doesn't work, and actually that's not how the universe does work, you can't ask, believe and receive, then it just means that you've spent a lot less of your day worrying about things unnecessarily. It doesn't mean that you're careless. It doesn't mean that you're not giving mind to things that you need to take care of. It just means that you're thinking about those things in a context that is constructive and
that's likely to result in you taking positive action as well, isn't it? That's the reality of it. So that mindset stuff, I think I completely agree with. The bit that I think we might and we can disagree, Jeff. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, definitely.
The bit that I think is that positive act. Certainly, look in the mirror. Certainly, it starts with you in terms of the decisions you make. The bit that I think, and again, I might have misinterpreted the book. The bit that I'd add on to that is you've got to take the positive action. This stuff that just doesn't come to you. You've got to take the action to drive stuff forward. So maybe I need to read it. Maybe I've misunderstood it.
No, listen, not at all. But of course, you're right that positive actions lead to positive outcomes.
Yeah.
But we have to recognise that our thoughts are incredibly important, and they're not just things that rattle
100%.
around in our head.
Yeah, 100%.
We wouldn't have a mental health epidemic if it wasn't for the fact that people are not taught to value the importance of your thoughts. And anyway, sorry, to come back to your initial question, how important is gratitude? Well, this is the main one, really. This is the main way that we can ensure that we're thinking about what was good. Excuse me, one sec. I'm a lot of talking today. Yeah, it's a way of ensuring that we are able to think about the things that were good in our day. It means that we're facing forwards as opposed to looking at what was bad. And again, if you believe in the law of attraction or not, it just means that the more you focus on what you're grateful for, the idea is, the premise is that we will experience more things of a similar nature that we might say thank you for. It's my favourite word, thank you. To say thank you, I sometimes shout it in the car when I'm on my own. And it, for me, it gets me in a really great state of mind where I'm completely present with what I've got and with feeling resourceful or resourced and having everything that I need, instead of, I guess, someone else in the car behind me will be having a different experience where they're thinking about everything that they lack. And ultimately, where you are in your head just dictates your life experience. So, my experience when I'm being grateful is that I'm having a good life, and that the
100%.
experience at that particular time is that things are good. And I want to spend as much time in that state of mind as I possibly can during my life. And that's not to say we're going to ignore things that are not good and not try and find solutions and improve those things. But let's always make sure that we celebrate our small victories,
100%.
whether it's someone holding a door open for us, whether it's someone saying a kind word, someone picking up a bit of litter on our behalf. It's, celebrate everything. And and that's massive for me.
I love that. Absolutely love that, and I completely agree. When we look at the world and where we are at the minute, I think realising how lucky we are every day is so important. One of the conversations that you had on the podcast that I loved, and one that I struggle with because I love a bit of technology, Jeff, is that using technology as a force for connection and communication, but then. I think you and your son had a conversation about how often we spend our time on our phones. Now, I haven't, if I've got to be honest, I haven't checked the amount of time I spend on social media. I'm a bit scared. But I agree. I mean, the thing that I do is that sort of do not disturb button on my phone is on constantly, so I can manage my own time and attention. But that was a good conversation. Can you share with our listeners, what you shared on the podcast?
So the basic premise just around distraction, I think. And I remember reading a book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal, and I took a lot from it. And I think we all have to be careful around the amount of power that we're giving to the device. And sometimes we can spend, hours, even if it was just 2 hours a day, that's 14 hours a week. That's, don't make me do, any maths, but basically over the course of a year or even a lifetime, we're talking about months that you have given up of your precious life. And don't get me wrong, there are obviously business uses and it can be used socially, but do we control it, or does it control us?
Is it a tool, or is it 100%?
Is it like a crutch? Is it something that we lean on? Is it something that we turn to when we have to be uncomfortable making conversation with someone, instead of being human and actually kind of inquiring, how's your day, to someone. It might be, whether it's, you can all imagine sitting around a table with family, and it's very easy for you to just sit there on your phones, feeling that that's sort of more important. But if you're not connecting face to face, I don't know, it's a massive concern for me. So I always try and regulate the time that I spend doing any of these things. One thing that's massively important is not leaving the phone by your bedside. So, because it will always be the last thing you do for longer than you should be, and it will always be the first thing you pick up in the morning. It's just a terrible habit. So I'll always put it in the plug point furthest away from the bed. I'm pretty sure that, it's good in terms of not getting those. I've seen videos of how I think it was newts or little fish swim around and to avoid a mobile phone because of all of the waves that they emit. So a lot of our kids are sleeping with their phones under their pillows. Not good. It's not good.
It's funny when as I said, Charlotte was struggling a couple of weeks ago, so we've just adopted a new routine that phones off. We go for a walk every day because we've got Hornchurch County Park behind us, and just we just don't touch technology for that hour and just chat. Most of that chat is absolute nonsense, Jeff. It's just us sort of having a laugh. But just spending that time is really, really important. And then the other sort of thing that appeared on the podcast that I was really fascinated about, and by the way, I've really enjoyed this chat. It's been really insightful. So thank you. Now that's I'm sort of learning already. Tell me a little bit about the conversation that was interesting was the one on masculinity, toxic masculinity, and some of the things that we should potentially avoid. Now, I know we've spoken about already about that, authenticity element and, saying we need help when we need help. What else do you see as the things that don't serve us in that space?
Well, just being completely absent from anything that has any emotional value. So I put the walk and talk song quite a lot, and simple premise: you get together and you walk and you have a chat, and if it's about something meaningful, great. If it's about football, no problem. But just that connectedness. Always 90% women, always, and it's like, how are we going to help men if men aren't going to help themselves? Why are we so tied to that preconception of what strength and masculinity looks like and how it behaves? You have to drink pints down the pub, and you have to.
Why can't you go for a walk and have a chat?
Why can't you? Why can't you be flexible enough to do that? I just know I'm not being critical when I say this, because I understand everybody's got their own limitations and things that they find difficult. I know I have, but I know that a few guys have kind of approached the walk and talk where we're all meeting, and have literally turned back or not go out the car because they've seen that there's quite a lot of women there and stuff. So it's I know that there are probably equivalents that can be done. I work with a charity called Strong Men, who are for bereaved men, and they take them up Snowdon. So there's something like you don't have to talk if you don't want to, and we're gonna walk to the top of Snowdon, and that feels like a really madly. It feels like without being stereotypical, because ultimately I think people get it. And it does draw people out a little bit, I
think we have got a challenge about breaking down those perceptions, though, right? It's just we have got a. How do we do that?
I don't know, but I need to find the format that breaks that. I need to work out how that works. And the first thing that comes to mind is like, if you come in, you've got to bring a man with you. Grab a man. Grab
a man, walk and talk. It's got a ring to it.
Grab a man, walk and talk. Make him come.
But grab a man, walk and talk. But you're right. Just that. And I think interestingly, my sort of lived experience of it is often just maintaining those social connections as a man, for me personally, when I look at the way Cassie does it, she does it amazingly well. And just, I'm still sort of working towards making sure that I can be vulnerable enough to turn around and go, actually, I need a chat, or I need some help and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a real interesting one, really interesting. If somebody wanted to get involved in sort of the walk and talks, wanted to get in touch with you, wanted to start one in their local area, that might be something they might want to do. Where can they find out more about you?
That's a great idea. Yeah, so just on Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Jeff Brazier. My email for those things is jeff@jeff-brazier.com.
Okay.
There's a lot of Jeffs, I know, but yeah, if someone wants to make a suggestion or come along to something, then that's what it's there for. And yeah, I'd love to get something sorted out in lots of areas. Hornchurch will have to be high up on the list, though.
I don't know whether I've got too much on, though, Jeff. That's the thing. But I'm sure we could find somebody to do it. Now, let me come along to one of yours first, and we'll see what we can do.
I think it's simpler than we think. It's simpler than, and most of the, well, I say responsibility, but all you need is a cafe that's accessible and a few people that are happy to put on workshops, and everything else will fall into place.
100%. Love it. Thanks for your time today. I've really enjoyed our chat, and thank you for being a guest. Oh, no, actually, one thing, Russ is going to kill me if I forget. So that's Sophie. That's my youngest.
Hello.
If you're ready to just
How are
say
you?
hello.
Good.
Good. We are still recording though, so are you going to sit down, or are you going to? No, she's off. One thing we always do every week on the podcast, we have a question that's non-kindness related, but about, just because we're curious people, we like to ask questions. The one that we've sort of shared on social media this week that's got a lot of attraction is what's the world's greatest movie soundtrack? What do you reckon it is? What's yours?
The first thing that comes to mind is Star Wars, because I grew up in that. But I need to revise my my first submission and say that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Great songs of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Amazing.
Pure imagination. Don't Cry, Charlie. Yeah, some absolute classics for me.
And we haven't had that yet on the list. We had a lot of Baby Driver, funny enough, but yeah, I've been listening to it in the car yesterday. Baby Driver has got an amazing soundtrack. Not original songs, but yeah, really, 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 really well selected.
Yeah.
Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries.
Cheers. And we have reached that stage of the podcast again.
Tis the end of another podcast, but the end is never truly the end, because the end is always the beginning of something entirely new. And this week, that entirely new is
last week's question of the podcast this week, as it normally is. And last week's question of the podcast this week is, in your opinion, what's the world's greatest city? Now, I know how you feel about this, Russ, because we spoke about it last week. Are you still saying Norwich?
Bangor in Wales.
We've been doing a bit of research. Why Bangor in Wales?
I just like the sound of it, Bangor.
How about Barry Island? If you're going to go for anywhere in Wales, you've got to go for a bit of Barry Island, haven't you?
No, I don't like islands.
Oh, no, not islands. You live on an island, Russ. It's called the United Kingdom. Oh, are we not commenting on that one, Russ?
No, we're not. We're not.
No, we're not.
I'm not even gracing you with a response now.
Clearly not. Mike Christie said Barcelona after Liverpool. Mark Eccles said he likes Barcelona as well. Sean Acton said London. Kevin Holt said London first, but if I'm travelling around, Rio de Janeiro is the only city I know to have a rainforest, a beach and a mountain. I think that's a good shout. Sam Chilton said apologies for the pronunciation here. Phnom Penh, after London, of course, and apparently Southend. Steve Dan said London, but he likes New York too. Sharon Hurst said London, Tel Aviv, and Cape Town. Mark Bartley said Dublin. Toby Acton says Kuala Lumpur. Alice Joy says St Peterborough in Guernsey. Elaine Glennon agrees that London is the place to be. Mike Bray said London, but then Oslo. And Karina Murray said London. And Benjamin Fox said Southend. And Rich Ellis said Bristol. I think there is probably a little bit, Russ, of hometown bias there, but I agree with them that London is definitely the place to
I'm
be.
absolutely disgusted Norwich team.
Well, then nobody else said Norwich.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you put one more, Dad?
oh, sorry. Keith Boyers actually got involved and said Edinburgh. So nobody, apart from you, Russ, believes Norwich is the greatest city in the world.
Unbelievable.
And on that note, unbelievable. And on that note, that is another show. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.